On Into the Mindset, we know a healthy body starts with a healthy environment. But mold, excess moisture, and foundation settling in your crawl space can silently harm your lungs and your home. Squeaky floors and cracking walls, that's a red flag. Advanced Crawl Space Solutions offers encapsulations that can boost energy savings by up to 20%. Plus, vapor barriers and rot repair to protect your air, your home, and your health. A healthy crawl space means a healthier you. Click the link below to get a free quote today. And don't forget to type in Into the Mindset to get 5% off. As a parent of kids in youth sports, I've seen firsthand how poor coaching, overcompeting, and negative sidelines can crush a kid's love for sports. That's why I recommend KLC Method Basketball. Coach Cam focuses on fundamentals, confidence, and true player development. No politics, no favorites, just real growth. If you have a K through 12th grader who wants to start or level up their game, give Coach Cam a call. KLC Method Basketball, where kids learn, grow, and fall in love with the game. Get started with Cam by clicking the link below. On Into the Mindset, we are all about protecting what matters most. And that includes your safety and your time. Fall is just around the corner, and with it comes leaves, clogged gutters, and dangerous ladder climbs. Freedom Gutter Covers gives you a lifetime no-clog guarantee, so you'll never have to risk a fall or clean your gutters again. Let us install your covers today so you can focus less on chores and more on faith, family, and freedom to be a healthier you. Click the link below to get a free quote today. And don't forget, type in Into the Mindset to get 5% off. Welcome to Limitless Living Into the Mindset, the podcast that dives into the heart of growth, grit, and what it really means to keep moving forward. We just got done talking to Andy.
Yep.
And that was a really good conversation.
It was very good. I liked it a lot.
It was so good that I really don't know where I want to start with kind of the recap part of it. I guess I'll start with the side I'm kind of more comfortable with. Towards the end, we were talking about fitness, the kind of health and wellness side of things, with wrapping it up all in that spiritual package.
Yeah.
I really liked when you kind of mentioned that. You know, I think we always kind of break physical, mental, emotional, spiritual into their own little groupings and all that stuff. But when we're talking about being Christian and what that means, all of those things need to be encompassed within that spiritual bubble that he was kind of talking about, or what did he say? Sphere.
Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that. So I really like that. I never heard it mentioned like that before. First time I've heard anything like that. It's always been kind of separated, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Just when he said that, I was like, not to go back to my like cringy Christianese ways, but I was like, I wanted to be like, all right, come on. I like that. That's good. Like
that'll preach. Yeah.
Amen.
I think I'm, like I said, in that podcast, I'm a big believer in the whole holistic discipleship kind of mentality of, this is everything that we do exists on a mind, body, soul kind of level, and it all works together. And I think there's this weird thing that sometimes happens, not all the time, but sometimes it can happen where you're seen as like more pious or more holier than thou or whatever. Like if you neglect certain areas of your life and you say it's like for the faith, you say it's so I can spend this much more time in scripture or this much more time in prayer or whatever. So I'm not going to go and take care of my body. I'm not going to worry about what I eat. I'm not going to think about what I'm doing. And because it gives you this like false humility where you're like, I'm not worried about what I look like or what I feel like or whatever, because I'm supposed to suffer and die for my faith or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but what are you really saying there? It's sort of a way, a get out of jail free card when you're not taking care of the other important things, because it's not like one is more important than the other. They are all tied together. And if you want a like robust spiritual life, then not that it means that you have to have a certain standard of physical fitness or diet or whatever, but it helps. You realize once you get into those areas, you realize, oh, I have more clarity of mind. I have more energy. I have more of joy because of serotonin levels and stuff like that, things that happen physiologically that help you in those other areas too. All works together.
But I mean, let's take exercise out of it. Let's take lifting. Let's take running. Cause he kind of mentioned this as well. When I had asked the question, is exercise a form of worship? He's 100% right. It can be for some people. For me, my running, my lifting, my hiking, my kayak, whatever it is, whatever activity I'm doing is my form of worship. That's the time that I can go and I feel most comfortable talking to God or learning in those situations. Whereas, I learn a lot when I sit there listening to Andy preach on Sundays. I do learn a lot there, but I learn how to incorporate those teachings into my life whenever I'm doing the activities.
That's right.
It's easier for me to
takes it from here and into your actual life.
Yeah. But that's for me. For you, or for, like he was talking about Ashley, his wife, like it was gardening. I know Magda, it's cooking. We'd had, her on just a few weeks ago. So everybody kind of has their different world. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and he likes to really put work as his, like, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do to keep me busy and keep my mind off of some of the negative things in my life. And I was like, what about hobbies?
Yeah. What outside of the thing you kind of have to do?
Let's put exercise to the side, and we'll just talk about hobbies also being maybe something that you can use as a way of speaking to God or learning from him as well. So it could be gardening, it could be hiking, it could be fishing, it could be hunting, any of those things, not necessarily super physically active, but still going and doing. There's still action involved with it. And I think that's super important. So as much as I would love to preach to everybody about get out there, get active, get in shape and all that stuff, I also just preach, find your outlet, find that space to take action, and so that it can go from mine.
And there are ways that we're kind of designed or hardwired to, like, we're attuned to certain things, like where when we do those activities, we feel a little bit more whole. We feel a little bit more receptive to whatever. Like whenever you're working out, it might be, you might be a reader, so you might listen to a book, or you might, whatever, on a long drive, you might do this or do that, whatever it could be.
He mentioned that, singing in the car.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
sometimes, depending on how you sing and how much you dance while you're singing in the car, you might work up a sweat.
Yeah. You might get a workout in and not even know it. But we just have these things that I think we're inclined to do because that's how we've been designed, and it's different for different people. And it's just a part of figuring out. I mean, if our bodies are intended for worship, which Romans says that they ought to be,
right?
Then we will find those ways of, in all of the aspects, mind, body, soul, heart, soul, mind, strength, those kinds of categories. We'll find areas where we can worship through each of those categories. And then what happens is we realize, like he was saying, like Andy was saying, it is all one thing. It's not supposed to be these four separate categories necessarily, but the four things hold up our spirit, or our entire life, spiritual life, mental life, emotional, all of it is all one life. So that's a big thing for me. And I thought it was cool to hear that from a pastor, who's, it's easy to over spiritualize it, but, or to like have a problem sometimes with saying, well, yeah, that's worship, but they have to make the caveat, but it's not the same as Sunday morning. Make sure you're there in the pew on Sunday morning. That is important. We know that. But there are a lot of people a lot of pastors and a lot of like churchgoers that it seems like they're uncomfortable with the idea that you can encounter God outside of a Sunday service or a church conference or whatever. And it's cool it was cool to hear that from somebody like Andy, and from, you know, my perspective of always kind of banging that drum when I used to work for a church and stuff like that. And it was just sort of hit or miss on if you'd find people that really, yeah, maybe they would say it and it was kind of lip service to that idea, but they wouldn't like, it never really moved from an intellectual thing to like a lived out real experience. And I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the podcast too, because the first part we were kind of really camping out on the spiritual and to tie it back into what this podcast is all about. It was cool to see those things kind of coexist.
Yeah. But even with that, when I tried to kind of take that path into the health and wellness side of it, I, again, in a sense, kind of separated. We were talking about spiritual. I'm like, okay, now let's go over here and talk about it, when it still turned into spiritual because it's the same.
It's
like
the same thing.
It's the same thing.
And you can't get away from it whenever you are, when that's part of your being, when that's part of who you are, just like talking about running and fitness in general is a part of you. Like, I mean, you and I, when we have conversations, whether they're recorded or not, I mean, we're talking about all these things, you know, and it's because they all have a part to play in our lives and they all are the components that make up our lives. And a thing that there was like a theme throughout that was sort of while I was sitting here listening and being a part of the conversation, I was sort of thinking about, you guys kept talking about, you know, if you find 15 minutes in your schedule to do that thing for your health, or if you find, you know, this hour here, but maybe the next day you can't get that same hour in or whatever, still take that opportunity. That was a big takeaway that I had, was like, I still think, like, even though I have done a lot of difficult things and I've kind of faced a lot of my fears, or I've faced a lot of my, the negative sides of my personality or whatever, and dealt with a lot of stuff, I still have this all or nothing mentality that's like, so he mentioned something where he was kind of putting too much emphasis on fitness or whatever, and it was kind of taking away from some other aspects of his life. And he had this moment talking with his wife. It's like, hey, we need you around more. We need to not be constantly working our schedules around that thing. And I had something similar like that a couple of years ago, or like a year and a half ago. And, but I had this like all or nothing mentality to it, where it's like not very long after that, I tried to kind of keep it like, well, I can't do what I was doing, so I'm going to do some of it. But very like within 6 months or so, I pretty much fell off of that completely, because I had this mentality. It's like, it's not what I was doing, so I might as well do nothing. Yeah. You know, and I really let my mindset slide back into how I used to operate before I ever got into any of this stuff. And that was an interesting part of the conversation to me, because it just made me go like, why in the world do I do that? I think a lot of people can relate to that.
A lot of people. I think majority of people can relate to it. We do have kind of that all or nothing mentality. And I think that's why a lot of people get scared of just exercise itself, because I have this, you know, I got to get the kids here. I have my job here. I want to go to church. Yeah, and I want to do all of these things. I want to exercise, but if I'm going to exercise, I want to do it 100%. And I just can't find that space to do it.
Not going to do it at
110%. So I'm just not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
If you start by, you know what, I got 15 minutes here, you'll be surprised how often that 15 minutes turns into 20 minutes. Yeah. And that 20 minutes turns into 25. And then you get to where you're doing 40, 45-minute workouts, which is enough.
When you thought you didn't have time for anything.
When you thought you didn't have time for anything. 75 hard, we've talked about it a couple times. It's good for this, because I think the workouts are supposed to be
45 minutes.
45 minutes. However, one of the kind of negatives of it, which there aren't many, but it might be the only one, is, at least this was for me, I became so, what's the word I'm looking for? So focused on completing.
Yeah, checking the box.
And checking the box, that I was neglecting other things. So it was like,
I was in that same boat.
Yeah. So I got to check this. I got to get this 45-minute workout in. Yeah, I know, but your son has football practice. yeah, but I got to get this 45-minute workout in. And so I'm missing out over here because I'm just trying to get this workout in. So I had to kind of like, again, my wife kind of called me out. And so it's like, okay, I got to kind of play around with this and figure it out. And so there were some days that kids had this. Those were the days I woke up in the morning. I can wake up 2 days early in the morning to get the workout done and then spend the rest of the evenings doing the workout.
Right.
But I want to, and so there's a balance with it. So you do have to be careful. Mm-hmm. That's why I always recommend to clients like, hey, I get it. Let's do 15 minutes.
Because it's better than zero.
Because it's better than zero. So just getting any work in that you can. And also reminding them that even the workouts themselves don't have to be all or nothing. Mm-hmm. You got 15 minutes. You could do it on your living room floor, getting push-ups, tricep dips, air squats, and a couple core exercises. I mean, you don't need weight. You don't need a membership. You don't need a membership. It's as simple as that. And you can start to become active. And once you start to get a little bit of those endorphins, get that dopamine hit that you get from exercise, you're like, okay, I want 10 more minutes of this.
Yeah. The motivation always comes after you start. Yeah. Yeah. That's another aspect of the thing that I think we can lose sight of, especially if we've been in good rhythms and then we've slipped up and we've gotten out of them. We kind of, even though we know the answers, we kind of like fall back into that thing. And that all or nothing thing was just something that really kind of kept coming back up just internally. It was just like, no, we don't have to think like that. We don't have to think, oh, well, if I can't get a whole hour in, then I don't even need to try to find a window for anything, you know? And that was just something that stood out to me and kind of made me want to rethink. Cause to be honest, like since that season of life, and I was trying to figure out all the, like you said, the negative of a 75 hard type, mentality is that it's designed to be an all or nothing mentality. Literally, it's like if you slip up, you're out. You're out. Yeah. Or
you get called, 75 soft.
Correct. So. Well, it's not my term. I didn't make it up. It's on.
You said it.
I said it, and it hurt you, and it's still. And I'm still sorry.
Yeah, I've held on to that. What is it? 2 years? That's resentment right there, buddy.
Yeah, dude.
I should probably let go of that.
It's deep, hard, like settled in there. Really. It's part of your core being.
It's actually turned into more of a joke now. Yeah. So it's fine.
But that's what I'm saying though, is it's like we as believers, as family men, as people in the community, employees, whatever identity thing whatever label we want to put on it, like there are times where like in none of those areas can we have an all or nothing mentality. Because it's all this like gradient of life. Like sometimes things are going really well. Sometimes things are not going that well. And there's all that's in between. But we can't just let off the gas because then we lose our jobs and we lose our family and we, mess up in all
our
of these
spiritual disciplines.
Yeah, we fall off, and that's when, like we talked about deconstruction in the episode, that's when those things start to crop up, like the negative version of it. I firmly believe there's a positive way to deconstruct and a negative way. But the way those negative things happen is when we have that all or nothing mentality and we throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that ties in perfectly with like fitness stuff. And it's just really easy whenever it's easy to make that like an excuse to like, to not try because you're like, well, it can't be perfect. I can't give
it everything.
Yeah. So I mean, I might as well not do anything.
Well, I mean, nothing's going to be perfect. We're human. Andy talked about that. That's one thing that when we first started going to, really the first time I met Andy after the turkey trot and just talking to him, he's always very open as a pastor about, I am not perfect. I have my faults. I have my insecurities. I have, growing up where I always had pastors that were kind of like what you were talking about, where it was like, just don't ask those questions. Yep. I can't show any type of weakness or any vulnerability or anything like that. Weakness is a bad term. It'd be more vulnerability, because being vulnerable is not weak.
That's right.
And then it was kind of refreshing to hear and see Andy kind of being like, yeah, no, I'm not perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can accept that. And he has an entire church that accepts it. Yeah. But we actually, I don't know, kind of look up to it and things as well. And
that's why I appreciate the church. You know, if it wasn't clear listening to the first episode with him to the last episode of the podcast, I'm also, my family, we're attending the church where he's the pastor, and that's a big draw, you know, literally just like the relatability of the lead pastor, the person up there, you know, representing this whole thing. Not that doesn't exist in some of the other churches it's not a knock on anybody or anything like that. It's just saying like, that is a refreshing, good thing to be able to find, is like a pastor who walks in humility, who is also very honestly and openly one of you. Like, it's not this elevated thing or this like inaccessible sort of like, oh, you live a way different life than the rest of us, you know, because that just kind of, I think even if some of it might just be people kind of assuming that, it's still, it's a thing that's in a lot of churches, and it's
I do. I think sometimes that happens as well. I don't think pastors mean to be propped up on some type of spiritual pedestal or something like that. It's just, it's kind of something that the people who are viewing them, they put you on that pedestal. And
to be clear, there are some that do want to be on a pedestal for sure. And then there are ones who like reluctantly, because I mean, I don't want to get into all of the stuff, but I don't want to get into even like the biblical side of it. Like there is a sort of it's not a higher than, like better than kind of mentality, but there is like a unique position that being a pastor is. But it's not meant to be, you know, pastors that I've known are some of the most isolated, like lonely people that I've ever met.
Right.
And it does that because you get either you put yourself on a pedestal or you get put on one, and that's good, bad, and in between. And then you feel like you can't be vulnerable because then all of this stuff, all of this whole system that is sort of like a house of cards, it could come crumbling down. Yeah. If you're vulnerable with the wrong person, it could gut the whole thing. And I always struggled with that when I was a pastor, because we're supposed to be vulnerable. This is supposed to be a family. You know, I'm supposed to be able to come with all of my, you know, the good, bad, and the ugly, and be accepted and be helped and be prayed for and be like to be ministered to, as well as being a minister to other people. And so again, just like to get back to the conversation with Andy, it's refreshing to see that, because again, caveats on caveats. I'm not saying that it's not the case in every church I've ever visited or been a part of or whatever, but it seems to be like exceedingly rare to find like a legit vulnerable person who's willing to go like, oh, I don't have to like walk on eggshells with everything I say, or have this hyper spiritual answer, or act like I don't struggle with sin, or act like I don't, you know, deal with real life. Because there's nothing that's as disheartening as going to this person that's supposed to be a spiritual authority in your life, and then basically, you know, you feel like they're the least relatable person ever. So it's cool to see that, and cool to hear that in the conversation we had with Andy.
Yeah, we were, I led our men's group the other night, and I got into some of my personal story and everything, just with my struggle with depression and things like that, and talking to them. And he kind of mentioned, he goes, you know, I had a pastor in my life that I finally took, you know, this thing that I was struggling with that I kept buried for so long. I finally just took it to him, and I was just like, this is what's going on. And he goes, yeah, me too. He's like, the moment he said, me too, that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
Because this was somebody who he looked at as a mentor at the time. And so when he was like, yeah, I know, me too. Right. Or I've gone through that as well. Or I know exactly what you're going through. It became relatable, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy.
And it didn't feel lonely anymore. You didn't feel like you were
anymore.
Ashamed anymore. Yeah. But much can be taken away just by by letting people know that you're still human.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do see that with a lot of other pastors, the loneliness, the kind of separation. They're on stage and they're in front of everybody and they're doing that.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go into their solitude, quiet place, which Andy talked about him needing that. But I remember when Andy and I first went to lunch together, I had grown up with so many of those pastors or with friends that were church leaders and things that I became that like go-to person when they needed to vent because they knew like that, you know, it's not going to go anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And so whenever I had lunch with him, I was like, hey, if you just ever need to talk, like I felt like I needed to tell him that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh, okay. But he usually says so much of that anyways that he doesn't really need just those. He has those individual people as well, but he says so much of it on stage and through his sermons that he has his whole community around him that already hears these things. And so I don't know. He just didn't seem to have that same kind of lonely vibe that, you know, you get with some other pastors because they kind of.
Yeah, because he's a part of his own church.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of concise way of putting it. You know, I've been in situations where there is that like accountability or those people in the pastor's life, but they're like outside of the day to day. They live somewhere else. They do something else. They are there. They're a mentor. They're whatever, but they maybe know conceptually what you're going through, but I mean, they don't really know your real life. They know what you tell them and they know, you know, they know the right things to say to make you feel like you can get through or to keep the illusion going that you've got it all together and that, you know, you're not actually, you know, you're not dealing with, I don't know how to say that without getting into the weeds, but, yeah, it's a weird thing. And, you know, I've also been in situations where even as a fellow pastor trying to support and trying to be a part of things and being told, you know, well, you can't relate because this like, and it's always this weird Christian language that is silly. It's like this mantle of leadership and this burden that I carry, like nobody could possibly relate to it. And I'm like, okay, well, how do we support you? How do we come alongside you if you're literally telling us that we can't relate to what you're going through and can't help? You know, so then what do we do except, of course, we're going to kind of back off a little bit and we're not going to do whatever you're expecting us to do. If we're being told one thing, but then we're being expected to operate in another way. And so that is another kind of issue whenever you're not actually a part of the church that you're pastoring. And that is something that is not present with Andy. So super, super grateful for that. As
much as, you know, I think Andy's so strong because he puts a lot of the church and the members of the church on his back and he wants it to grow and become better. And thankfully he has, you know, faith in God and that God is in control of everything and all of that. But just as much the members of the church put Andy on their shoulders and support him, and
it's a both and thing.
Everything. It's been odd, you know. It's been a different dynamic for me with some of the churches I've been with in the past, and then to go into this one and just he was talking about the different generations too. I can't tell you, you know, for about 3 years we were kind of church hopping and trying to find different churches and things. And there were some churches we walked into that are more of the, you know, boomer and Gen X area and stuff. And it was like, what are these kids doing here? You know, kind of feeling that you walk in, you're like, I'm going to sit in the back here and just be quiet. And, you know, is he really wearing his hat backwards right now, you know, kind of feel and stuff like that. Or like, you know, you typically, I don't know if you own pants anymore. I think you just wear shorts now.
I wear shorts until it's too cold. And then I have some pretty sick sweatpants that I like to sport. Yeah.
So, you know, he was talking about the shorts thing. Like you typically walk in on a Sunday with shorts on.
Yep.
And I believe they're like, I don't know, you might be sitting at a 7-inch in short, but
5.5.
5.5. Yeah. But I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know
Got
either.
distracted by your short shorts.
Yeah. We might need to have a separate conversation.
But what
about
I mean is I'm back now. Train of thoughts locked in. Squirrel. But we walk into those churches and we just didn't feel as welcome. And then when we walked in to the first there, we have a multi-generations there, and we felt just as welcome by the boomers that are in our church as we did the Gen Zs that are in our church.
We felt the same way. No weird looks, no like odd questions, no assumptions that we know of that are in there. And so it's just really easy to feel comfortable.
At least they're kind enough to do it behind our back.
Yeah. Like don't react. Talk about it at lunch.
Talk about it at lunch later.
Yeah.
No, but so, that's definitely a God thing, but I do think that that's some of just the community that has been built within our church.
Yeah. I think another thing to that is there's not a sense of, there's an aspiration there to be a good pastor. There's an aspiration there to be a good, father, husband, and to be a good member of the community, but not some aspiration for something beyond what is in front of you. Like this weird, like American dream kind of vision of the success in the church world is the same as in the corporate world. And it's always up and to the right. And I need to be, change. My leadership needs to change. It needs to be, I'm a pastor for now, but actually, now I'm this pastor of pastors and this leader of leaders. And it's like always trying to elevate yourself above your current, what has been given to you, and to do really well and to live faithfully by that, rather than pursuing this idea of something greater than or bigger than. Like I said, he's firmly a part of the church that he's in. The church, I don't actually know much about like if it's growing, if it's not growing, if it's whatever, but there doesn't seem to be this big concern to this push to try to be something bigger or to move in some direction that's outside of what God has given him. And I love that. I think that's such a refreshing take, because we're, especially in church, like we're in this, the question is always, how do we grow? How do we make things not just better in the sense of like wanting to improve, like we want to improve the strategies of church. We want to improve the methods, and not always wanting to just improve the quality of the relationships within it, which actually is what the church is. So that's another differentiator I think that I see. And again, my fifth caveat, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist anywhere else. I'm not saying.
Yeah, we're just talking about what we know. I mean, this is our church that we go to, and Andy's our pastor. Ashley is his, like we, so it's easy to talk about those things within our world. But I know it's happening in other places as well and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just great when you find that and it feels in it all, because you could find that in a church and it still not feel like the place that your family should connect and be a part of. So it's just cool to see that. Yeah. And also to be like, we're comfortable staying here for the time being until it feels like, we shouldn't for some, I don't even know where I'm going with that. I'm just
to talk about what you were kind of like mentioning with him being not comfortable, but being, I guess in a way, like,
he's content.
He's content with where he's at with that. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. He kind of mentioned that as well. Whenever they came to Lebanon and he took the job here, he was like, I feel like this is someplace I could grow and be a part of for I could be one of those pastors here for 50 years and
and it's not complacency,
here.
Especially for a guy like him who is really competitive, who is driven, who is, he is somebody who wants to be the best version of himself. You can tell the way he carries himself, the way he talks, the way he preaches. Like you can tell he's working on that stuff actively, but to still find contentment and to not look at yourself as a failure or as less than because you don't have what another church or like in the business world or in the fitness world. I mean, I'm that way when it comes to running. Like I am very content with not being the fastest guy out there. I'm happy with pushing myself and getting better, but I don't have to win anything to prove to somebody or to myself. Like I'm just happy pushing myself to the next level. Whenever I'm in that mindset, it's never, it's not, I'm getting complacent because my time isn't improving or I'm not getting a PR every time I run or whatever. It's contentment in I know what joy comes from just being out here and improving as I improve and not having like, maybe there is a season where you push harder and it doesn't look like contentment because you're pushing, you know, but then there's times where you go like, man, I'm just grateful for what God has given me in this season. I'm grateful for what this run has given me or what this workout has given me. And, you know, you're not trying to break any records or have some outward, you know, get a pat on the back from some other person you respect or want to be like or whatever. You're just happy with what God has given you. And that was a big theme also throughout that podcast, is just feeling like, yeah, this guy's feeling content with where he is in life, and he's happy to be living out the call that's on his life. And within that context to go, how can I stretch and grow and push myself, but not so I can get out of my current situation, so that I can do this better, so that I can do this more faithfully with more energy and more passion and strength. It's
a very servant mindset.
Yes. That's a good word.
Yeah. Is what I get. How can I continue to serve to the best of my ability?
Yeah. Not how can I like outgrow and level up to the next thing.
How can I get to the mega church level and things like that?
I love that. That was a big takeaway just from getting to converse with him in this situation. Not necessarily even about, it was more like the air of the conversation, not so much what we specifically talked about. But I think just, I don't know if we probably need to get wrapping this up, but it's that all or nothing thing was something that stood out to me specifically. And then just this air of who he is as a person and why, the fitness goals that he's had in the past, like, or currently has, the things that he's trying to do, all of the different irons he has in the fire and stuff, why those things, not that he's perfect by any means or, he even said that multiple times, but like why you look at a guy like that and you see the things going on in his life, you go like, yeah, he's a successful guy. It's because the focus is in all the right areas. And with it being all encompassing, mind, body, soul, holistic, this is who he is. That's like, yeah, that's how you live a fulfilling, contented life. And I just really appreciated that, especially from the guy who is the pastor at the church that we go to. So.
That we go to and teaches us and we learn from.
It's cool to have that.
And that, he learns from us. Like I said, I was leading our men's group the other night that he was at. So, and it was nice that he kind of repeated some of the things that I said. So it's like, okay, maybe he's picking up on some of the things we're putting down as well. So
right, I like that. He's not just like waiting for his turn to talk. That was another thing that was just like it felt like a really good organic, same conversation we would have without microphones. So that was good.
So we talked a little bit. We do need to wrap up here pretty soon. But I want to touch base on. We were talking about the deconstruction side of it, and like he said, we could probably, that's another like 5 podcasts that we could probably do with all of that. But just kind of a quick question and we'll wrap things up. What do you think in today's world, what do you think a good Christian looks like?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't think that we can always see on the outside of a person in what they're doing, the tasks that they're doing, even sometimes what they're saying or their attitude toward you or whatever. I don't think we can, it's always a very surface visible thing. I think there's an inner life and there's walking in step with the Spirit that you don't always see. And sometimes you do. And that's fruit. That's fruit of the Spirit that we can see. There are some indicators, but I think it's what you see over a person's lifetime and the kind of overarching, where's their life trending? Where's their life heading? Are they walking in love and kindness? Are they willing to talk with their brother and sister in Christ about the difficult things, not shy away from it because it's Christian nice to just say, I'm praying for that, or to ignore a glaring elephant in the room. Somebody who's, I think like spiritual disciplines are important, Bible reading, prayer, and those kinds of things. And sometimes we see or we know about those kind of typical standard things that I think they're very important, and I think they ought to be present in a Christian's life. But I think it more boils down to kind of an energy that you feel with a person in a room, knowing if they've got your back, if they're vulnerable, just like they maybe expect you to be vulnerable with them. There's a lot to go into there.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the, compassion, love, kindness aspect of it, along with the willing to call people out, or speak up.
Yeah, to deal with things. I think that's
because it is something issue that we have to do, is deal with certain things, but we have to approach it with compassion, love, and kindness. I think a lot of times as Christians, it's kind of brought up that it's more where we do the condemning, but then we leave it at that. We don't actually bring a solution to the table or anything like that. We're calling people out in more of a hateful way.
And not calling them up.
And not calling them up, yeah. So I think, to me, that's what I look for in a modern day Christian, is who can kind of block out some of the negatives in the world, and who can see past those things and see a person that is struggling and say, you know what, I could sit here and say, you're not on the right path and you're doing all these things and it's negative, but first I'm going to say why. Why are you doing these things?
Yeah.
Could it be your upbringing? Could it be, a ton of different things that are causing this, and actually going to them, talking to them with compassion, love, and kindness.
Yeah.
And then being like, okay, so we have this problem. Now let's find the solution with it, instead of just arguing back and forth.
Yeah. And trying to be right.
Yeah.
I
100%.
think that a true Christian, I mean, of course, in this, I guess you have to say that we're assuming that they believe the core tenets of the Christian faith. So we'll just set that aside. Yes, they believe, they have responded to the gospel, they believe, and they live that life. So all the things that go along with that, great. But then what is their approach to the rest of life? And I think that a true faith-filled, spirit-filled Christian listens to other people, listens to and responds in love to their brother and sister, and to people who are outside of the faith, and to people on social media. And I just feel like a lot of it boils down to love God, love others. So how are we treating the people that we encounter day to day? How are we treating the people in the next pew at church? The person who walks in, who doesn't really know, doesn't have their footing on any of this stuff. Maybe they're coming back. Maybe they've never been. Whatever. How do we interact with them? And a true Christian is a person aspiring to live life like Christ, and to walk in step with Him and with the Spirit to give glory to God. And that sounds maybe somewhat generic, but you see that and you feel that in how the tone shifts when they're in the room, and do they live in a way that other people respect and can honor, or that makes them have a little skepticism toward Christians in general. And are they really practicing what they preach? Are they a hypocrite and knows it? Or are they a hypocrite and tries to hide it?
Yeah. And to that, I could just say to, non-believers or the skeptics or, anything in between or whatever, the only thing I could say is just ask questions.
Yeah. Ask questions. And when I think I said something to this effect if you don't get the answer right away, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Keep
asking questions, get different perspectives.
Andy talked about finding the sage in your life. I think that multi-generational thing is great, and it's lost on modern living, just literally the way we live life is so hyper individual that we don't often go to people that aren't our peers because we barely have those. So, I mean, yeah. And that's a great place where churches still have the market cornered, so to speak, is if you find the right church, it's not always the case, but there is more of a tendency to see multiple generations present in the same room. And you just have to be willing to not let your Christian life be a series of boxes that you check because that's what cultural Christianity is. It's like, this is what my parents did. This is what my grandparents did. This is what, my friends in high school did, or, whatever it might be. But to go, no, what does the life of Jesus look like? How can I do more of that? And recognize from jump that one of the big differentiators is that Jesus was constantly surrounded by people unless he was going in solitude to pray and to be alone with God. He had, they were disciples, but he had people he was ministering to. He had people, he worked as a carpenter for many years. So he was around just common folk in the villages and towns and things that where he was. And he lived an obscure life, a faithful life before he ever entered into ministry. And look for people like that. Look for people who are doing those things and not looking to get glory, not looking to lord some knowledge over you, not looking to give you the right intellectual, push the glasses up their nose and go, well, I think if you look at whatever scripture, it'll tell you exactly this thing. And if you just don't do that, then you'll whatever. That all has a part to play, but look for the way a person carries themselves, way a person lives their life, and the things that they say and the things that they, the kind of more typical surface Christian stuff that you would think of if you just thought, the stereotypical Christian stuff, I guess. That stuff should be present, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Well, I think it is pretty evident that we could probably make a whole other podcast. Yeah. Yeah. just based off of the surface of conversation that we started with today, almost 2-hour conversation with Andy. And there's so much more that you and I could talk about, but we're on a time limit because you have things to do and I got to get to cross country practice. Yeah. But, so I think this is something we'll definitely have to touch base on in the future. I'm going to kind of do a cliche kind of YouTube thing here, but I want to know, if this is something we should continue to pursue. So on the Andy video or podcast with Andy, and then this particular one, like it, comment on it, subscribe, tell us, ask questions on there, questions you'd like us to talk about. And we can, possibly do another episode or maybe even branch off into a whole other podcast. Cause I think that a lot of these are questions that a lot of people are searching for answers. And so I think we can definitely
people in the church and outside of the church. And if you're a person listening or watching or whatever, and you've got questions about faith and you want to explore that, maybe you've been down that path before and it's not gone that well, or you've never been down that path before. There are people out there who live real lives and deal with real situations and are also faith-filled believers, and find that tribe, as Christians would say. Find your tribe.
Find your tribe.
And it's true language, but you do have to do the work of searching for it. And I'm just saying, even if the answers I don't know, those answers are out there, and there are people that are willing to pursue those with you and pray for you and encourage you and all of that stuff. I like this kind of stuff. Obviously, this resonates with me.
Resonates a little bit more.
Like Colin said, if you want to hear more of this kind of stuff or have questions, talk to us. Let us know.
Yeah. And like I was saying, go subscribe, comment, whatever you need to do. So that if you want us to continue having these conversations or possibly branch out to another podcast, let us hear about it so we can do that. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
Let's get to our other things, but I appreciate you as always coming on here and recapping these episodes and sitting in with the episode.
That was fun. That was a new thing for me.
That was new. So that was really fun. We were glad to have you there. So
thank you very much. I appreciate you.